democratization of fashion possible? Welcome back to part 2 of a topic that seems to be in everyone's lips, the democratization of fashion. Let's continue to the last 3 of the 6 points about the accessibility to fashion. Hi, welcome back to my channel where I talk about all things related to fashion. I'm Jody Jan. I have worked in the fashion industry for over 30 years for over 50 brands. The most talked about topic in the conversation of democratization of fashion is the cost of fashion from consumers. This is the number one comment I get in my TikToks regarding fashion. It is the cost being too high for fashion to be more accessible to everyone. With fast fashion making fashion so inexpensive and accessible to 2 generations of consumers who either grew up shifting into shopping fast fashion as the norm or were born to a time where they didn't know that fast fashion didn't exist before. Compounded with social media, there are people who do not know how clothes are made and why high-end fashion costs what they do. There are a lot of consumers who want runway quality fashion, but with fast fashion prices. However, the quality of the fashion you get is based on what you can afford. It has always been this way and it will not change. Here's why the cost is considered high. This is because of the fabrics and other materials used. We can't forget to pay people for the work they do unless you endorse slave labor. As you can see, the salaries for people who work in fashion aren't exponentially high as consumers imagine. This is just part of fashion brands' operational costs, not counting what it takes to keep the doors open. For a designer and luxury brand, there is the added cost of marketing involved, which the lower you go in the tiers, the less you spend on this. While the cost of freight and rent is standard for any fashion brand, where the fashion brand's office is makes a huge difference in this cost. Then there are consumers who want accessibility to have a say in what fashion brands do. From a customer's point of view, I believe this has to do with the issue of sizes offered. I don't think that this has anything to do with the designs, although I feel like they could input by writing product reviews, which the sales team read and tell designers routinely. I agree that the fashion industry needs to improve on working with plus-size influencers and hear customer feedback from plus-size people. However, it is better in 2022 with more emerging designers who are only doing plus size. There are fashion brands all over the world that cater to all sorts of different body types, even if the size label says it's the same size. What people need to pay attention to are the measurements and not the size tag. Every brand has a target customer who is geared towards the demanded body of the region you're in. It is not a one body type fits all, so someone isn't going to be happy. The way fashion brands worked was using the standardized 6 size scale, which made a lot of fashion brands rich. From an established brand's perspective, if the wheel isn't broken, why bother fixing it? But with size inclusivity having a big push in social media, the luxury brands can't ignore it. But consumers need to understand that sometimes brands can't do it due to the fabric being too narrow. If they do it, it might change the design drastically or not be cost effective for them to do where they can make money. I hate to say it, but fashion brands are in the business of making money. I agree the fashion industry should be more size inclusive, not only to plus size, but to tall and petite size people as well. The straight size designer brands either don't advertise that they do plus size since they have to make it custom and it is the only way they can do it at the high cost without losing money. They will offer tokenism of putting a plus size model on the runway. This is why I said in my plus size video that plus size people need to support emerging new brands who will have them in mind instead of the brands that built the business, catering to an entirely different clientele and have been very successful at it. The conversation of size inclusivity made waves around 2014, shortly after Instagram allowed fashion bloggers to show off their plus-size bodies in fashion. Fast forward to 2022. There are more emerging plus-size fashion brands launched than ever. I'm talking about exclusively plus-size brands and not messy brands scaling their sizes up but not addressing the issue of a plus-size body. If you want to see how Missy fits do not work for plus sizes, please subscribe to my Patreon for it. Thank you. Lastly, in terms of accessibility for inclusivity for niche groups of people and diversity representation, there are disabled people who fit into a very niche population of people who want the fashion industry to serve them. Then there are little people who fit into a niche group who also want the fashion industry to serve them. Lastly, because the world's population isn't predominantly Caucasian, even if most of the top fashion maisons and brands are owned or designed by Caucasian people, the customers of these brands want to see themselves represented in fashion nowadays. Which I think that there's some progress of K-pop idols, Zendaya and Rihanna being fashion icons. I think that there's a lot more diversity in fashion designers like Christopher John Rogers, Kirby Jean Raymond, Sai Sanko, Sally Lang, Jason Wu, and Peter Do. This might be a controversial opinion since I see both sides as a consumer of fashion and someone who has worked in the fashion industry for over 30 years. From a business perspective, the small group of these niche customers, it's hard to serve and scale up a fashion business unless the niche can pay higher costs, much like the way luxury and couture brands put out styles for the masses then offer custom fitting for anyone who isn't a straight size. Because the cost of these fashion pieces can be double or triple of fast fashion pieces. Even with a bigger audience of plus size people, tall and petite people, the fashion industry is not serving these groups properly the way they want. The two possible ways to serve these niche groups, the way the fashion industry is operating now, the first is to start a fashion brand that exclusively makes fashion for each of these niche groups. This way, the brand becomes the brand for the community, then there's a big enough customer base to sustain the brand. The other way is, like I said, is to do custom. I don't know any other way than these two options for a fashion brand to succeed while serving these niche customer bases. If you know another way, drop me a comment and let me know. My point is that if democratization of fashion is to give people accessibility to fashion, I don't think that people are lacking access to fashion as before, but I definitely think that the fashion industry could do better on some points. This is how much social media has democratized fashion across the world. That being said, I think consumers need to be mindful that just because fashion is accessible doesn't mean that they should overconsume it. There is an epidemic of landfills being created all over the world. If you want to see the first part of the democratization of fashion, please check out the link in the description box. I hope you liked this video. Give a thumbs up if you did. Please leave a comment below if you have any questions. And please subscribe and help me grow this channel. Thank you. Bye.